Online. Yes, we're online. You push the record over there? Okay, welcome to Tuesday of week 11 at Military Studies. Cadet McGee, you may begin.
Flight, Hudson, Hut! Element 1, report.
All present accounted for, sir.
Element 2, report.
All present accounted for, sir.
Pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Seats. Set. Cadet Russell, come up here and front and center. Cadet Russell's birthday was the 22nd, and we need to sing happy birthday to him. So everyone, flight, attend hut.
Loud and rousing rendition of happy birthday to properly embarrass him so that he can smile. You can smile here on camera, okay? All right. Cadet McGee, this is part of your responsibility. Let's don't be off key here.
I'll try.
I'll try to be off key.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you! Happy birthday to you!
Everybody wave your hands.
Happy birthday, dear Russell! Happy birthday to you!
He is very happy. Sit down. He is very happy to be there. That is great. Okay, guys. Welcome to Tuesday. We're going to continue on Lesson 1 in Chapter 4 of the Aerospace Science book, Journey Through Aviation. Let's first of all go over our announcements. You guys need to see what's going on in our ROTC world. Let's see. Today is Tuesday. I'm sure my leaders did this. Yes. How many people here have been to summer leadership school? SLS. All right, so there's your picture of my SLS class. I think this is last year. Is that you, Cadet Overton over there? Okay, well, for those of you who do not know, the first year's summer leadership school is a benefit. It's a perk of being an ROTC. It is, if you ask Cadet Bean, Cadet Overton, I know they will say that these classes are the most fun of any classes they've had in their entire life with me teaching it, okay, here in this studio, but maybe behind closed doors on Facebook or Twitter, they will mention that this SLS is probably one of the most fun part of high school. Without Cadet Bean, come on up here and tell the world about SLS. I'll even put your big smiling mug on the picture camera here. Oh my goodness. Can I go? Just look that way. You look that way, okay? Here we go. All right, so tell. All right, big smiling mug.
This is where, at the end of the school year, you'll go to Camp Navajo, which is by Flagstaff, and you'll be there for a week. You'll the first few days is a drill and marching and circumstance and yada yada, which that in itself isn't all that fun. But then about halfway through the week, you go to the forest, and it'll just be like camping the rest of the time. Almost no rules, pretty much. You know, it's way relaxed and laid back, and it's just a lot of fun.
So what was your most favorite part about it? And what was your least favorite part about it?
I'd say the least favorite would be waking up so early, because you wake up at like 5 or something, 4. But and the best part would probably be on like the second or last day when they gave us 30 minutes to sleep in. It's only 30 minutes, but it seems like so much more.
So you mean your favorite part is not hanging around with Colonel Peoples for another summer month, a week in the summer,
You weren't
right?
there when
I was not there last year, right? All right, well, everybody give a round of applause there. Okay, so we have our Camp Navajo picture there. What this is a summer camp. We at Prescott High School have graduation always for 110 years. How long have we been? 109 years. It's always been the Friday before Memorial Day. That's just the rule. Okay, and that Friday is the end of May. And then Camp Navajo, for as long as I've been here, 7 years, always leaves the Saturday after graduation. So you may be here till 10 o'clock, partying and having fun with your friends or your brothers and sisters, but then the next morning at 6 o'clock, we leave. And we go for 1 week, going from Saturday till Friday. This is a picture here online of our before and after. Before is there on the right, looking real smiley and fresh and hair just done perfectly. And then after they go out in the woods, like Cadet Beam was talking about, you look like the BDU, the camouflage, which we give you guys as part of the deal. How much they cost for you guys? 70 bucks, 75 bucks?
For my year, it cost 50.
50s. It depends. Well, the problem is, I'll tell you right now, is that the Air Force is not giving us, meaning junior ROTC, the money that it used to. So we may not have it this year, but I hope to have it. And if we can, we will go. But the days of it costing 10 bucks, 20 bucks is probably over. It'll probably be $75 to $100. It's for a whole week of being gone with food. And, of course, we give you all these uniforms.
Amazing.
Food was amazing. Some of the food you got to be able to navigate to find. If you don't find the food, you don't eat. That's kind of a bummer. But the time out in the first day is probably a pretty miserable day, to be honest. Come here and tell us about the first day. Come on up here and let me hear about your first day at Camp Navajo.
By 10 o'clock, I was crying.
Introduce yourself and tell them about your first day at Camp Navajo.
Hi, I'm Ashley Overton. First day of SLS was horrible because the minute you get off the bus, they're standing there. Like, I'm not kidding. Here's like the open. Okay, you're standing here in the opening of the bus. They're right here, and there's just a long line of them, and you have to walk through them, and they're just yelling at you. I'm not kidding.
They're just not discussing?
Yeah.
Give us an example of them yelling at you. No cuss words, right? Very professional.
Okay, so I think the very first thing that one of them said, I don't know who it was, said to me was, "Why are you smiling, cadet?" And then you run out to the back of the bus, and you have to grab all your stuff out, and you have to try to get it out as fast as you can. And they're yelling at you, and then, okay, if you ever, well, actually you can't go again. But, note to any girls, if you have nail polish on, don't wear it. Because I got yelled at severely for having nail polish on. Oh, and earrings. I had earrings. And Second Lieutenant Garcia, she didn't like that. That was not good. So basically the first day sucks because you're marching everywhere and they're yelling at you for everything. If you take one step wrong, they're going to yell at you. You look at them sideways, they're going to yell at you. You have a hair not pinned right for any girls, they're going to yell at you. Like, right in your face, and you can't look at them. You can't look them straight in the eyes while they're yelling at you, because they'll ask you, "Why are you looking at me, cadet?" And it's just bad. And if you say the wrong answer, they're probably going to make you run like 5 laps around the whole camp. It's not good.
Did they make you miss mommy and daddy?
I don't know. For me, I don't know. I guess I didn't really, because I don't know. I didn't really miss home a whole lot, but it's...
What was your favorite part? What was your worst part about SLS?
The worst part was definitely all the marching and drill practice and being on your feet all day in your blues and those uncomfortable shoes and that uniform. But then the best part was definitely being outside for the last 3-4 days or whatever. And you do this it's called E&E, Escape and Evade, and you're out in the dark with your little individual group that you're put in, from your squadron, and you're trying to, you march all the way to the back part of the property that you're on when you go camping, and then you try to get yourself back to camp without being found by all the MIs, and it's really fun because you're out in the dark. sneaking around, being all stealthy.
It's amazing you lived through that, isn't it? It's amazing you lived through that. Yes, Cadet Bean.
A word of advice if you do go during the night E&E, don't get lost.
Yeah.
You'll be laughed at big time.
Or we
Trust
get
me
in
on
really
this.
big trouble
Well,
because.
trust me on this. My group went way lost, and we came back, and then we were laughed at by like everyone there.
Yeah.
In the E&E, what happens if the MIs do catch you?
Then they just
Torture you.
not really. They kind of just like.
They kill you.
Yes, exactly. No, they have these like. It's really funny. They're really actually really scary. They have these like pop guns, and they like make like sparks. They're not like real guns. They're like these pop guns, and they'll get really close to you because they can see you, but you don't see them. But you have to try to make sure you're really, really still and pretend like you don't see them. And they'll fire it off, and you get all scared, like you almost pee your pants. And so then like they'll say, "Hey, I found you," and then they'll just take you back to the camp or whatever. So I mean, it's not that big a deal, but it's really fun because you're like by yourself in the pitch black dark. The only light you have would be the moon. That's it. You're not allowed to use flashlights.
Knock out the MIs.
I wouldn't try it. It's not a good idea.
Some of them are really mean guys.
Yeah, there's this one short one. Well, he's not really short, but he's like really big like built. His name's Sgt Alcaraz. You don't want to run into him.
That name sounds.
You don't want to run into him. He's not nice.
He was my MI during it for the barracks. He's actually pretty cool when you get to know him, though.
Oh, really?
As long as he's not yelling at you.
Yeah. Oh, Sergeant Brown. He's pretty.
Yeah, he's one of
Pretty
the.
scary. Yeah. So,
All right.
So how long were you there? 6 days?
Saturday till Friday, so 7 days. Everybody give Cadet Open a good job. Okay, so I'm just telling you about SLS so that you can at least think about it. You need to realize after Christmas we'll be taking people's names who are interested. It's going to be about 25. I'm going to be able to go this year, so it'll be 25 of us going. Yes, ma'am.
just to note to anybody, if you guys would, do consider going, like into the military, it actually, like, if you do go to SLS, it gives you a really good background for what boot camp will be like. So.
You'll learn about it. It does grow you up. Put it that way. It grows you up because you're put in a weird situation. Okay, we have orienteering on the 3rd of November, a week from Saturday. Meeting tomorrow afternoon for the team if anybody wants to go play scavenger hunt with us. Upcoming color guard events. This Friday, actually, we have a event at the government, actually the new judicial law offices here in Prescott, down there by Sundog Ranch, where Cadet Veronica Campus is the commander, and then the football game, Cadet Kusel is the commander. Uniform of the day is Thursday. And then anybody here going on the field trip? That's the field trip? Nope. Okay. And then community services weekend for Big Brothers, Big Sisters. All right. Super. Okay. We are going to go over our Army Air Corps. Just a review from what we did yesterday. We actually talked about the predecessors to the Air Force, how it got developed. Has anybody looked at your assignments online? I think somebody did. Didn't you look on the assignment? Did you answer this last night?
Every single one.
Yay! Great. Everybody give him a round of applause. I mean, less than 24 hours later, he is on top of it. I'm about to fall over and have a heart attack. No offense. Just kidding. Okay. All right.
Don't scare me there, Colonel.
I'm going to follow. Call 911. And so, all right. So anyway, we are now talking about Billy Mitchell, which is a big part of the growing up to be an Air Force. What years did Billy Mitchell start to do his demonstration that we saw a video of yesterday? What years was this?
1921 to 1920.
1921-ish. Yes, this is the picture of him. He believed that the Air Force should be the Air Force before the Air Force was a dream. 25 years early, right? Started in the late teens after World War I, and then the Air Force became an Air Force in 1947. We did talk yesterday about future arms of the American Department of Defense. Which one did we talk about yesterday? Cyber force, maybe cyber war. There's actually a quote in your military where it comes out that I'll tell you what. Let's actually look at that. Page 127. Everybody, look on page 127 here. I need somebody to read what Billy Mitchell thought about Pearl Harbor. So go ahead, sir.
Start at the beginning, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Mitchell and Pearl Harbor. Some people are not only smart, they're also imaginative. They can put what they know in a new perspective. Brigadier General Mitchell was such a person. He predicted as early as 1924 the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Mitchell visited Japan in 1924. He noticed the country seemed bent on expanding its territories. He wasn't sure when that would be, but he figured if Japan went to war to expand its influence in the Pacific, it would attack U.S. bases in Hawaii and the Philippines from the air and sea. He wrote, "Attack will be launched as follows. Bombardment. Attack to be made on Ford Island at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii at 7:30 a.m. Attack to be made on Clark Field in the Philippines at 10:40 a.m. 17 years later, on December 7th, 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. They struck Ford Island at 7:55 a.m. They hit Clark Field at 12:35 p.m.
Isn't that kind of weird? When was 9/11? What year was 9/11 in? 2001. So 1984. None of you guys are even born. Imagine if somebody predicted in 1984 that terrorists were going to knock down the World Trade Center. Is that unbelievable? So what about right now? If somebody were to predict, he almost got the times right, that America's electricity would go off and stay off for 6 months, 17 years in the future. Is that kind of crazy? So this guy truly had it. he truly had the vision that very few people had. And when you're like this, does anybody believe you?
No, sir.
You ever heard of Galileo? Or Leonardo? People that had predicted the current, dreams that are different than the current reality. Imagine in 20 years earlier, people saying, "Oh, we built these largest buildings in the world, and yes, we're going to have 2 planes knock them down." So it's kind of crazy. Yes, sir.
I bet 2 things would have happened if someone had guessed, "Oh yeah, the World Trade Center is going to get knocked down." 1, people would have laughed at them. 2, people would have ridiculed them. People would have said, "Oh, how can you say that? Do you want that to happen?" No, it just looks like it's going to happen, People would have just laughed at them.
Correct. What did they do to Billy Mitchell?
They
laughed at him, and they ridiculed him. And eventually, what did they do? On page 126 at the top. I even have it here. Page 126 at the top. What did they do to him? Yes, sir, Cadet Haslam.
They court-martialed him.
They court-martialed him. Why did they court-martial him? What was wrong with his life? Did he go out and rape and pillage and kill? What did he do?
Like he was committing treason, sir?
Committing treason. Exactly. And meaning he verbally condemned his high command. And I can even read it out there. He said, Mitchell said, the high command of both the Army and the Navy are guilty of incompetence, criminal negligence, and almost treasonable administration of the national defense. So, because he so openly criticized his military officers, Mitchell was court-martialed for insubordination. This article of war, 96th article of war, forbids all conduct of a nature to bring discredit upon the military service. He was convicted, and he was supposed to go into a 5-year sentence, but he quit. He got out of the military in 1926 it says, and then he continued to speak on behalf of the Independent Air Force, but unfortunately he died young, relatively young, and he never got to see the advent of powerful bombers such as the B-17. So, it's pretty incredible. After he was dead, after the Air Force they realized the Air Force was going to be separate. They gave him a Medal of Honor posthumously, right, after he died, to try to make amends for what they knew was wrong. We talked about some of these other stunts that he did, the non-stop flight across the United States, 1922, 23. Again, this is nowhere near World War II, right? It's after the World War I. It's actually the boom of America, like we had in the 90s. Stock market was going crazy. Everybody had extra money. Round the world trip, kind of crazy. 175 days, half a year to fly around the world. And we're talking very primitive planes, okay? Very primitive. And cross America in one day. Nobody had ever done that, okay? Nobody ever done that. So did all these stunts, try to get everybody's attention of the ability of the planes to change the course of the war. We talked about this yesterday. Actually, Sgt Neuro, why is a sergeant flying a plane? I thought you had to become a college education. Why is that?
They don't have, because back then you didn't do college education, sir.
There you go. I'm telling you, they had flight sergeant. Why do you think they called flight sergeant? Because they flew. But anyway, this Sgt Neuro is actually in your books. I think it's what, on page 128? Went from a sergeant to a colonel, but he was an inventor. He invented the bomb sights. They say that he was the father of the United States precision bombing. And they said 10 of the 11 bombers missed the target, but this one sergeant who figured out how to actually aim bombs from the air, a bomb sight, actually got it one ordnance straight through the smokestack and then straight through the deck. And we talked about yesterday, decks are made of just literally wood. Okay, no plating, no armor, because nobody ever dropped anything from the top. And so it's kind of crazy. So anyway, Sgt Neuro actually became a huge part of Mitchell's experiments. After all these experiments, they created the Army Air Corps, changing it from the Army Air Service to the Army Air Corps, and actually sort of inching towards an independent Air Force. And it was significant. It changed to the Army Air Corps. And in that, when the Army still had tanks, right, building tanks, you can think that the Air Corps was kind of a unappreciated part of the Army. Unappreciated part of the Army. And honestly, in the Navy aircraft, what's the mission of the Navy? Is it to fly? What's the mission? You rule the sea, right? I mean, the mission of the Navy is to have ships and project power across the world. Here, what is the first mission of all Navy planes? Are you supposed to go out there and drop nukes and wipe out the bad guys? To land on aircraft. Why would they put planes on aircraft carriers? Yes, sir.
The Navy's primary search for aircraft would be search and rescue.
Search and rescue, well, that's if they crash, right? But why would you put airplanes on a big aircraft carrier? Yes, sir.
To protect their ships.
Ding, ding, ding. They're sitting there watching one plane drop one bomb and sink a ship. Then they go, you know what? We probably put up our own planes for self-defense. So the majority of the aircraft on an aircraft carrier is self-defense of the fleet, to defend itself, not necessarily power projection, which is what the Air Force's missions are. Okay? In all this, we had something called the Tuskegee Airmen. This is an aside. I want to talk about this on our population. This is population of the United States, African American population. Okay? And we're living in Arizona. Here's a question. How many blacks, percentage-wise, are in Arizona? Out of 100%, how many blacks are in Arizona? Like 5%. Like 5%? That sounds pretty high, right? Low? High? 14%? 7%? What do you think? 3%? 10%? actually, I think I got it on here somewhere, but I think it's 4.1% of everybody in Arizona is black. Okay? There are more Native Americans in Arizona than blacks. Okay? Which is kind of crazy because nationwide, there are very few Native Americans. Here in Prescott High School, I think there's 7. 7 blacks out of 1,850 people. So here in Arizona, we have a different world where the minorities are different. And look at the history of America here. I found this web page that talks about the population of African Americans in America. And you can actually see that in 1790, 20% of the population is black. In 1790, 20%. Who are those black people?
Slaves.
Slaves. This is right after the founding of America. Could those blacks go out and vote?
Nope.
Were they even counted as a person? Nope. Why? Why? Why were they not counted as a person?
They were counted as they weren't counted as people. They were counted more like items.
They were objects that you own. Like I own this cell phone right here. Okay. And but here's a question: how do you determine how many votes you get in the Electoral College? We're coming up to election for our president. How do you determine how many votes do you have in the Electoral College?
Population in the state.
Ding, 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 ding. Population of the state, congressional seats. So I'm from South Carolina. And guess what? There's more blacks in South Carolina than whites in the year 1780. There's more blacks because there are more slaves. Same thing in Georgia, same thing in Virginia, North Carolina. But why can't I count them? Why did they count them? Wouldn't that be good for South Carolina? Yes.
Because they couldn't vote, sir, and don't they base the percentage of the population off of?
Why didn't they? Why didn't they count my slaves so I could have more Electoral College votes? Why?
Because they didn't consider people.
Because what?
They didn't consider them as people.
Well, I think you look at it, it's like 3/5. Did somebody say 3/5, 2/5, 3/5? What happened? It was a compromise with the North, right? The northern states, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, they had slaves, but they didn't have many slaves. And compared to the South, so if you had, that means that South Carolina would have been a huge Electoral College, right? And so there's a compromise that says, yes, we'll have Electoral College, but no, we're not actually going to have the ones be counted as actual humans to vote. So it's crazy. Yes. So look at the population of the blacks through history. 1800, it's decreasing. 1900, what's the population? 11.6? Okay. And then now, let's talk about 1940. Here's the war. You're going to a world war. 1940. We have, 10% of the population is black. And you're going to a world war. I'm sorry, you guys are white. You guys got to go over there and be killed. We're not going to send any of the black boys. Is that fair? Is that smart? You're a president. You're a president and want to win this war. Does that make sense to not include 10% of your population?
Sure.
So, what would you do?
Send them all.
Send them all. You've never done it before. The blacks have been discriminated against. They have to drink out of colored white water fountains. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine a water fountain for blonde-haired kids? Black-haired kids, you got to go to your own water fountain. And, females, my goodness, y'all have weird water fountains, okay? Y'all females. But imagine being discriminated about how you look. I was born in 1959, and in the 60s, I'm pretty sure in the South, in the 1960s when I was alive, there still was segregated water fountains and bathrooms. I don't remember it as a kid, because I lived in the capital of Columbia, South Carolina, and we were integrated, and everything's fine. But I'm telling you, in the small towns, I bet you there still was segregated bathrooms, segregated places. Let me show you here. I'm going to show you a video of the Tuskegee Airmen. And this is actually, where is Tuskegee, Alabama? Well, let's go to Tuskegee, Alabama's on the southern part. This is Alabama, right here next to Georgia and Mississippi. And then Tuskegee's in the eastern portion. And ironically, Montgomery, Alabama is where our junior RTC headquarters is. I hope before Christmas to have our commander talking to you guys via this system. And Tuskegee was a small town near Montgomery, Alabama. It was famous for George Washington Carver. They actually, this is the airfield that they actually came from, right here next to an interstate. All right, so let me see if I can pull this up. And we can play this. And let's hope that the technology works here.
The interesting common fact that surrounded all of their backgrounds was that all of them had wanted to fly.
There has never been in the course of time more inspiring words written than those that read, that all men are created equal. Sadly, for many these same words proved a hollow promise left to echo in time, resounding as a mockery of an equality that would demand years of struggle, overshadowed by bitter disappointment. Equality was to remain an elusive dream. The dim light of hope never blazed brighter for Black Americans than during an era in American history when they began challenging the discriminatory practices of the armed forces. Key to the demands of major Black organizations, such as the NAACP, the National Urban League, and others, was for the designation of centers where Negroes could be trained for work in all branches of the Aviation Corps. It was not enough to train pilots alone, but navigators, bombardiers, gunners, radio men, and even mechanics. Under this collective pressure, Congress made concessions by passing Public Law 18. Under its directive, an air school to prepare blacks for military service was authorized. 91 of the 100 young Negro college students enrolled in the civilian pilot training program qualified for civil licenses during 1939 and 1940. In spite of all these facts, the Army Air Corps refused to alter its stand and allow blacks to fly. In 1941, with guidance from the NAACP, a Howard University student named Yancey Williams filed suit against the War Department to compel his admission to an air training center. Almost immediately, the War Department responded by announcing that it would establish an air unit near Tuskegee Institute, Alabama, the 99th Pursuit Squadron. Activated March 21st, 1941, the Fighting 99th began training ground support troops at Chanute Field, Illinois. Eager young Black Americans received specialized training in maintenance engineering, armament, and communications. Just a few months later, an inaugural address was given at the Tuskegee Institute, initiating the training of black aviators for the United States Army Air Corps. This hard-fought privilege brought with it a great responsibility. The nation was watching, and the fate of future black military aviation rested in the hands of these intrepid young flyers. In a bold and inspiring departure from the expected, the contract for construction of Tuskegee Army Airfield was awarded to the firm of McKissick & McKissick, headed by a black architect and engineer. In July, construction began on the facility for basic and advanced flying training. The first class for pilots consisted of 12 cadets and 1 military officer, Captain Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. It commenced primary flying training July 19, 1941 at Moulton Field. Soon, young Tuskegee graduates would show the world they could not only fly, but fight. Shortly after graduating in the first class of 1942, Second Lieutenant Charles DeBow was stopped on the street by a white civilian and asked, "You one of those new colored flyers over at Tuskegee?" He proudly answered that he was. "Tell me one thing, what do you boys want to fly for anyhow?" he was asked. Shocked but not surprised, DeBow said he couldn't really think of an adequate answer at the time, but afterward realized the simple elegance of his answer. He was flying for his country. He felt he had a job to do for his country and his race. And just as Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver had proven themselves as educator and scientist, he might prove to someone that Negroes could become good pilots and officers. Armed only with their bravery and determination, fueled by dreams of dignity for others like themselves, Lieutenant DeBow and 4 of his fellow pioneers, Captain Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., Second Lieutenant Lemuel R. Custis, Second Lieutenant George S. Roberts, and Second Lieutenant Mac Ross, became the first graduates paving the way for the other 961 black military aviators who were trained at Tuskegee Army Airfield during World War II. Under the command of Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., 450 of the graduates served as fighter pilots, attaining dignity and glory in the aerial war over North Africa, Sicily, and Europe. Flying P-40s, P-39s, P-47s, and P-51 type aircraft, the 99th Squadron became the 332nd Fighter Group, which also included the 100th, 301st, and 302nd Fighter Squadrons. Together, they flew 15,553 sorties and completed 1,578 missions with the 12th Tactical U.S. Army Air Force and the 15th Strategic U.S. Army Air Force. And with each and every mission, yet another victory was achieved, not just for the nation, but for a people as well.
The interesting common fact that surrounded all of their backgrounds was that all of them had wanted to fly. Well, I started out with these young people back in a black Air Force in Europe in World War II. Performance is the absolute key in combat. To protect the bombers, to prevent them from getting shot down by enemy fighters, the 99th Pursuit Squadron was an expert in dropping bombs and hitting targets and hitting locomotives. It was also an expert in aerial combat. The 99th Squadron did one thing at Anzio that no other squadron did. It shot down 16 enemy airplanes.
Yesterday, I fulfilled one of my ambitions as a combat pilot. I got one airplane.
This was my country. I wanted a piece of it. I had to fight for it, but I'll be damned if I was going to let some other country come in and take it over.
Though no real plans had been made for their usage, by mid-1943, Negro candidates were being screened to determine their relative aptitude as pilots for multi-engine aircraft, as well as bombardiers and navigators. Class 43J was the first at Tuskegee, with about half of its members training in the multi-engine Beechcraft AT-10, hoping that the bomb group program would actually develop. The first air cadets to train outside Tuskegee were the navigators who graduated at Hondo Field, Texas, February 26, 1944. The 477th Bombardment Group was officially activated January 15, 1944 at Selfridge Field. Although the 477th never entered combat due to the war's end, their struggle for equality and performance as military professionals, along with the magnificent wartime record of the 99th and 332nd, led to a reversal of the U.S. War Department's racial policies. In 1946, Tuskegee Army Airfield closed. Shortly after its closing, the former base commander, Colonel Noel Parrish, in discussing the success of the flying school, said the following: "How good were our pilots? How good is any pilot? Our men were good enough to graduate from any flying school in the country. We made sure of that. And working together, we proved it. We emphasized that a pilot or a man of whatever color, size, or shape is just as good as he proves himself to be. Men and pilots have to be considered as individuals. We have had some of the worst pilots in the world right here, and we have had some of the best. In the first place, they flew and fought as men. They may have had pretty good alibis for being failures if they wanted to use these alibis. Or they may have been proud of their group as the only one like it in the world, as they had a right to be. But when the test came, they had to fly and fight just as men. Americans against a common enemy. Today, there are over 425,000 black Americans serving in the armed forces as an integral part of the defense of this great nation. Their position in the military, their communities, and indeed the world has been attained and preserved through achievement and honor, the direct result of commitment to their ideals and dedication to their dreams.
In the early days at Tuskegee, in addition to the already difficult job of flying, we trained under the additional pressures of segregation, but we had no time for self-pity or despair. We were too busy preparing ourselves for a career of service to our nation. The state of our fully integrated Air Force today is a pretty good indication that we did a good job. But that doesn't mean that the future will be a rose garden, or that there will not be other obstacles to overcome. Freedom must be repurchased by every new generation. When the Tuskegee flying program was offered to America's black youngsters, we were ready. We had prepared ourselves for this opportunity, and when it presented itself, we grabbed it with both hands. Prepare yourself so that when your Tuskegee appears, you will be ready.
Okay, guys, I'm going to keep the video going there so you can see some of the people that actually lived through that era. What is the historical significance of the Tuskegee Airmen? Cadet Brudenell. What is the historical significance of the Tuskegee Airmen? Talk. Give me an idea.
I don't know.
Cadet Kramer.
They were I'm pretty sure they were the first black African-American flight.
Aviators, okay, but what was so significant about that? So what?
They were the first black.
Okay, so the first ones.
Yeah,
what else? Yes.
People didn't think that they could do it. So.
Yes, they were first ones, and they stunk so bad we never had another one, right? No, they did fantastic. Yes. They proved themselves worthy. They surprised everybody. I'm telling you, there's so much prejudice in America at the time. They didn't think that the African Americans could be intelligent enough, coordinated enough, sophisticated enough to fly the most advanced fighters of the day. But they did it. And you actually saw one person there, Mr. Colonel Parrish, I think his name. He's a white guy. He was a colonel, white colonel, and he was the one in charge. Do you think it was easy for him? Do you think that was a career-ending move?
Teaching all these young black men
that nobody thought could do it, you know? I mean, I'm just telling you, there's some, those are example of one person changing the world, with these guys having the guts to go out and do it. There's, of course, a very famous movie here recently called The Red Tails, is that right? Red Tails, about them, that goes into some sensitive matter. Okay, yes, these guys are fabulous, they're very famous, they shot down planes. I mean, they're combat fighters. They got distinguished flying crosses and medals of valor. Some of them were POWs. Okay, what happened when they came back to America?
Back to segregation.
Back to segregation. They were treated miserably, spit upon. Do you think those colored and white bathrooms and fountains in the schools, in the high schools, in the public places went away when they came back to America.
No.
Many ways they were treated worse in America than they were in Britain or Germany when they invaded Germany, or Italy. They were actually not in Italy, Africa. So imagine they're being treated worse at home by the people you saved than by the people you defeated. So it's kind of amazing. You can't imagine that type of racial prejudice and what existed back then. But we can still hold them in esteem and try to learn from their past. Okay, we will stop there today. And tomorrow we will start up with the B-17 and Brigadier Major General Benjamin Falois on what, Thursday, okay? All right, Cadet McGee, why don't you come up and dismiss the class here?
Flight, Hudson, Hut, dismiss.
Go do great things.